Hello, viewers. Washing and soaking rice. Do you really need to do that? This is a makgeolli recipe experiment. It takes time to wash rice. Were you ever tempted to skip it? Or to skip soaking for 3 hours or more? What happens if you don't wash? What happens if you don't soak? I'll answer these questions with a makgeolli brewing experiment in this video. The purpose of this channel is to promote rustic Asian rice wine. Enjoy drinking and brewing rice wine at home. There are hundreds of videos for you to watch on this channel. And if you like this video, please click that like button, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, and please share this video wherever it is appropriate. I appreciate your help in spreading the word about rustic Asian rice wine. So here's my experiment. I'm going to have 3 jars of Danyang juice, single stage makgeolli. Jar A, I'll wash and soak the rice. Jar B, I won't wash, but I will soak. And jar C, I'm neither washing nor soaking. So it's a 3-way comparison between these 3 jars. Let's brew. So I'm brewing with sweet rice, of course. 1 kilogram of sweet rice, also known as glutinous rice. And this is jar A, so I am washing it carefully like normal. It takes about 15 minutes to wash the rice. I'm following a basic single-stage makgeolli recipe as given in Begin with Rice and Water, a primer on brewing makgeolli. You should read the primer, and if you read it already, you should read it again, because it's very useful. And in the primer, it says to wash the rice. But since it takes 15 minutes, I know brewers are tempted to skip it. So this is the rice I'm going to use for jar A, the washed rice. I'm going to finish up washing this. Water's pretty clear now. And I'm going to soak this for more than 3 hours. And here's the rice I'm going to use for jar B. Again, 1 kilogram of sweet rice. This time I'm just going to soak it. I'm going to make sure all the grains of rice get wet, but I'm not washing it. I'm just, you see how cloudy the water is. And I'm going to let this soak for, again, more than 3 hours. And this is the rice for jar C. No washing, no soaking, just some raw rice in a bowl. So for jar A, since I soaked it, I'm going to have to drain it. Allow the water to drain off of the rice. I'm going to let this drain for 30 minutes. And same for jar B. This has been soaking. This is the unwashed but soaked rice. And I'm just going to dump it in the colander and let it drain. And I'm going to steam all 3 of these at the same time in 3 separate cloths. The cloth for A has no knot, the cloth for B has 1 knot, and the cloth for C has 2 knots. And I dampen the cloth before using it here. So here's the rice for jar A in the dampened cloth. So I'm going to put that to the side. Here's the cloth for B, the unwashed rice. So I'm going to wrap that up and move it aside. Leave some room for C. Here's a cloth for C with the 2 knots. And this is the raw rice, not soaked. I'm going to see what happens when I steam this. So press that down. I want to fill up all the area of the steamer and let it steam for 40 minutes. And start timing once the steam starts coming through everything. Now here's the NURUK, the essential ingredient for delicious Korean rice wine, makgeolli. Using 90 grams of NURUK, 200 milliliters of water, and half a teaspoon of wine yeast. And I'm mixing that up for each of the 3 jars. So I do this 3 times. And this is just NURUK from H Mart, which seems to be the most convenient place for me to get NURUK. So I mix up these 3 cups of NURUK and yeast mixtures. They're all the same. And now the rice is steamed. It's been 40 minutes. Be careful touching these. Of course, the steam is very hot. Now I can lift out A and B, and then C. Okay, I'm going to spread these out to cool to room temperature. This one looks good. And this one looks good too. But the unsoaked rice, here's the first lesson. Rice must be soaked before steaming. The unsoaked rice, barely cooked. Might have cooked just on the edges, but it's pretty much raw. So you can't steam unsoaked rice. So that's the lesson. But I'm going to cool all this rice to room temperature. Now it's cooled down, and putting the rice for jar A in the jar, adding 800 milliliters of water. Already have 200 milliliters in the NURUK mixture, so that makes 1 liter of water in total. Then I mix that by hand. Makgeolli really likes being mixed by hand. I feel every grain of rice and make sure it's separated. And I keep the lid loose. And I do the same for B. Now this unwashed rice was stickier and more difficult to put in the jar. I used the same amount of water, and here's the same NURUK and yeast mixture. And again, I mix by hand. So it just was a little harder to work with the unwashed rice. And here's C. Now this is very difficult to work with. The unsoaked rice did not stick together, but it did stick to the cloth. So I was going to try to shake off the cloth, get all the rice off of the cloth. It was very difficult. It kept on spilling over. Okay, so this is not a good start for jar C. This is terrible. But I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to add 800 milliliters of water to this and the NURUK and yeast mixture. And I'll mix by hand. I can feel that this is mostly raw rice. What will happen to this one? So I'm fermenting all of these in the basement. It's between 18 and 20 degrees Celsius. So it's the next day, day 1. I'm stirring 3 times. Let's see what it looks like on top. Okay, the rice has soaked up the water. It looks pretty dry on top. Same for B. I can hear A and B bubbling, but C also has some bubbles. And I'm stirring A and B here. I'll stir C2. The rice did not absorb the water at this point, so it's a much different texture. Then on day 2, I'm going to stir these twice. A smells and tastes normal. By normal, I mean it's yeasty, sweet, and tart. All of these characteristics. And when I taste C, it's thin, sour, and bitter. So I'm not getting the normal fermentation into alcohol in C. It might have fermented a little bit, just the sort of the edges that were cooked, but it's not fermenting normally. Any bubbles that I see from C, I think are just from something decomposing. It's not really fermentation. So these look so much different. A and B are fermenting. They're bubbling. I can hear them. You can see the pockets of gas in them. Let's just watch the fermentation. Also, you can see that jar B is a little bit ahead of jar A. The level of the separation of the rice into different layers, jar B is just a little bit ahead of jar A. Jar C is just sitting there, sort of decomposing, not looking good. And you can see in jar A and B, the rice is starting to fall down to the bottom, and more of the rice has fallen down in jar B. So as it progresses, you see in day 13, jar B has almost all of the rice has fallen down to the bottom. So I'm gonna bottle on day 13. Another lesson here is the unwashed rice fermented faster. So let's make a note of that. Maybe it's the sort of the rice dust on the outside of the rice that started off the fermentation faster. The contents of jar C will be discarded in the yard, and the jar will be washed outside. I'm going to show you why. Something is just scary. It smells really unnaturally sweet and weird. Some kind of weird mold is growing on it. That is not good. That's not fermentation. That's what happens when things just are rotting. So I'm discarding that. But we still have jars A and B. Let's bottle jar A. So I start off by boiling the filter bag. And stirring it up one last time, and I'll pour that out into the bowl here, into the filter bag. And it pours out easily, and it just starts flowing out. Start squeezing this, and it doesn't take too much effort to squeeze out all of the liquid. I can. And what I'm left with is the jigame that's 288 grams. 288 grams of jigame. And I can put all the liquid in the bottles. I get about 2 liters. So this batch worked out well. Let's bottle jar B now. I'll boil the filter bag again. Stir up jar B. And then dump it into the filter bag. And again, this is easy to filter. No problem squeezing that out. And I get 282 grams of jigame. That's essentially the same. Okay, so I get 2 liters from jar B. Here's my results. So jar C didn't work, but I still have jar A and B, and I'll taste these right now, just after bottling, and I do detect a small difference in taste. It's not a big difference, and it's hard to say one is really better than the other, but they are different. I don't have an explanation for why, but jar B just is a little bit harsher, and it has a bit of a sort of wheat flour taste at the beginning, and at the end it's just a little bit harsher. So that, again, I don't know why that is, but that's what I'm tasting right now, right after bottling. But both of these are pretty normal single-stage makgeolli. It's what I expect from a single-stage makgeolli. The taste is pretty harsh. The alcohol isn't super strong, but you taste it because it's harsh. That's just how it works when you have a single-stage brew. So just to summarize, the A has the normal single-stage flavor. It has apple aroma. It's milky. It's slightly sweet and tart. And the alcohol is harsh. And then when I taste B, it has some kind of wheat flour taste at the beginning, and it's slightly harsher. But overall, A and B have quite similar tastes. And then 3 days later, let's see how it settles. Okay, let's maybe one settled more than the other. But no, they're the same. So here's another lesson. Washing the rice did not affect the amount of jjigae, the amount of sediment, or the clarity of the chongju. So that's a lesson there. Okay, let's review all of our lessons. The rice must be soaked before steaming. The unsoaked rice barely cooked. And the unwashed rice was stickier and more difficult to put in the jar. The unwashed rice fermented faster. And washing the rice did not affect the amount of jjigae, the amount of sediment, or the clarity of the chongju. And the unwashed rice produced a flour-like taste early and a slightly harsher taste later. Oh, wait a minute here. Both of these decided to self-mix. I just had them open for a small amount of time to pour off some chongju, but they both decided to self-mix on me. I enjoyed doing this experiment. I tried to learn something about the reason for washing the rice, besides having clean rice. And I hope you enjoyed this experiment too. Thank you for watching.